Murder, deception, prophecy. What do these nouns have to do with me being in a graveyard? You see, I've tracked down a copy of FromSoftware's Echo to this exact location. And by track down, I mean I went on Facebook Buy and Sell and got one for dirt cheap. Strange though, the seller did say they would be here by now, yet they're nowhere to be found. Oh, what do we have here? But what are these strange markings on the game case? What arcane secrets do you hold? Guess we'll never know. Finally, Echo is in my hands. And a good thing too, because this place was starting to give me the creeps. I mean, who leaves a copy of Echo in a graveyard attached to a cadaver? I mean, I don't kink shame, but I no longer wish to be here. During the late 90s, a company named FromSoftware were known for their first-person 3D real-time action RPGs such as Kingsfield or Shadow Tower. Games typically taking place in fantasy settings revolving around dungeon crawling and swords and sorcery. However, in the summer of 1997, a small branch of developers within FromSoftware began experimenting with the 3D spaces they had created for Kingsfield 3. And in doing so, they noticed that these spaces were a bit dull. They'd come across a house, and in that house there would simply be a chair or a desk. Nothing really to make the house feel alive or interesting. But in that very moment of mundanity, the team came up with this idea. What if that desk had some drawers? And what if those drawers had keyholes? You see, the simple idea of a detailed 3D environment with such depth as drawers and keyholes is the very proposition that gave birth to the game being covered in today's episode. The development of Echo would begin that same summer as devs Akinori Kaneko, Toshifumi Nabeshima, Sakumi Watanabe, and Kiichiro Sagawa, I'm so sorry for how I'm pronouncing those, but that's as good as I'm gonna get, would set out to create a detailed puzzle-based adventure game with just a hint of horror, focusing more on exploring intricate locations with little enemy encounters in attempts to preserve a sense of loneliness and dread. In researching this video, I found out that there was a company called SoftBank which had published a series of guidebooks called Perfect Guides, one of which was for Echo. So, I bought it. For more than I'd like to admit. Now, why I was so drawn to this guidebook wasn't because it would keep me from wandering around for hours, but rather because there is one of, if not the only, dev interview for Echo contained within its pages. So armed with a copy of the game and a guidebook that I totally won't use, why don't we go put this in the old PS1 and just see what this ghost story has to offer. Foreshadowing, eh? I like it. Released August 13th, 1998 in Japan and later July 22nd, 1999 in North America, Echo was a brand new IP that had all the staples of a FromSoftware game, except with a stronger focus on atmosphere, 3D environments, and puzzle solving. Tied together with a bizarre narrative and its survival horror-like gameplay, Echo was truly a unique experience to behold if you played it. Unfortunately, it just barely cleared 120,000 units worldwide to mixed and middling reviews, with critics claiming that the textures were ugly, controls clunky, and gameplay uninteresting. But as we all know, retro FromSoft games age like a fine wine, and inevitably, Echo would form a cult following from which people claim that they loved it even more than Kingsfield. Echo opening cinematic starts with the disappearance of a passenger ship known as the Orpheus in 1913. We are then shown gameplay exhibiting the many detailed environments that the dev team worked so hard on, all coming to a close with this amazing title card in hyper-stylized font in front of an old explorer's map stabbed with an ancient dagger. Pair that with the misty ocean background, and you know it's time to adventure. You play as Richard Osmond, son of famed artist Henry Osmond, and while chilling at your detailed pad, you receive a blank letter from your estranged father with nothing in it but a small key. From there, Richard receives a phone call from the local police department to help investigate a mysterious fire that engulfed his father's house. We arrive at the Osmond estate and walk around the main room. Almost instantly realizing that, yeah, this is a retro FromSoft game.
Let me see your face.
I always found those FromSoft textures to be a trademark look that, while not the best by today's or even at the time standard, inspire this ambience that, for lack of better words, makes me feel like I'm playing an old PS1 title. That wobbly texture that always seems like it's not quite stuck on right. The amorphous NPC faces that ebb and flow the further and closer you get from them. And I know these are pretty present in most PS1 titles like Vagrant Story, Silent Hill, etc. and etc. But for reasons unknown to even me, I find From Software games somehow do it worse. But in a better way. However, I gotta give credit where credit is due. They did manage to make this first area you go to, this ugly charred house, feel more detailed than literally any house in the first 3 Kingsfield games. Instead of a chair and a desk, we have a chair, fireplace, suspiciously placed broken oil lamp. But looking at these detailed environments might be a bit of a challenge because the controls take some time to get used to. Since Echo Knight was developed without the dual analog in mind, the controls play a lot like the classic Kingsfield games, as movement is locked to your D-pad, where up and down moves you forward and back, and left and right rotates you side to side. But where it deviates from the Kingsfield games is the bumper strafing and the viewpoint trigger control. Instead of strafing being locked to the bumpers and viewpoint being locked to the triggers, we have the viewpoint bound to left bumper and trigger, and strafing to right bumper and trigger. I could not get used to looking up being tied to LB and LT, and strafing being tied to RB and RT. It would be a constant battle of looking while trying to strafe and strafing while trying to look. All I wanted was a control scheme similar to Kingsfield. I mean, look at how limited the options are on the control menu. You have the basic Echo Knight configuration, then you got the... I spent 8 hours complaining about this game's controls, all because I neglected to check what the other controller settings were. Well, that's nobody's fault but my own. Please remember to check all the options in a game before ruling out that there's too much head bob or the controls are bad, because in Echo Knight, you can customize so much. Can't deal with a head bob? Turn it off. Crosshair bothering you? Off. Walking speed? We're zooming now. Kingsfield controls? Kingsfield controls! Henry's house works as a pseudo-tutorial that teaches the player about the basics of Echo Knight. As you explore the different environments, you will be puzzle solving by investigating the rooms you enter, interacting with objects as indicated by the subtle flashing, which I find helps the player navigate what objects are worth looking into. It should also be stated that most objects in Echo Knight are interactive, but not always important. To discern what might be worth investigating, you can use triangle to give a short description of said object, or even pick it up and move it around with X. When the object requires a missing piece or key, square can be used to open up the item menu, which you may choose from the many items you've picked up throughout your journey. In the first area, as the player familiarizes themselves with movement, they will find a wind-up key among some rubble in the hall. This just showcases how small and hidden items can be, expressing that attention to detail is more than required to solve the mysteries of Echo Knight. The only other room in the house is at the back, where we find this grandfather clock. Now it's locked, but worry not, as the key Dad gave us can be used to unlock it. From there, we examine the clock face, insert the winding key, cause the clock to move, revealing a small hole. But how do we enter the hole? Well, without going back to 5th grade health class, you can simply hold circle, which will make Richard crouch, allowing him to squeeze into smaller spaces and get lower to the ground to interact with objects on the floor. This entire segment really teaches you everything you need to know going into this game. Obviously the controls, but more so the core mechanics of Echo Knight. Investigating, searching, using items, squeezing into small holes. Even the idea that some objects may need more than one item to work, as is the case with the clock. Now beyond the hole is a secret set of stairs with a book at the top, and through some ancient magics, touching this book causes us to be whisked away through time itself into what I call a memory. In Echo Knight, Richard is sent to different periods of time, which I considered memories at first, thinking they were exactly that, a memory. But after playing, I realized that Richard was not in fact an outside observer, but physically there during the events he's witnessing. So for simplicity's sake, I'm gonna refer to these segments as memories, even though I know they're more than just recollections. Memories are a core feature in Echo Knight, and is something that I think was extremely well implemented. Occasionally, as you interact with items, you will be thrust through time itself itself into new areas that can only be exited when you have solved the memories puzzle. It's also a very effective story vehicle, revealing important narrative and providing Richard with items he needs to progress in the game. The first memory we experience sets up the entire overarching narrative for the game, as Richard is brought to a train station in the past where he follows a young man onto a train. And through some expert sleuthing and OSHA violations, we find out that this youth has been trailing a man by the name of William Rockwell. As it turns out, William's kind of a pretty nasty dude, and when confronted, holds a gun to his granddaughter's head to dissuade the young man from shooting him.
Okay, Grandpa, I thought you said we were going to Disney World, but I can now see that that was a big fat lie.
William then shoots the hesitant young man and leaves the cart, giving our wounded hero time to speak with William's granddaughter, Crea Rockwell. He then gives her a piece of mysterious blue stone before revealing to her that his name is in fact Henry Osmond, your father, and that he's been hunting down William as he believes him to be possessed by a demon. Henry leaves the cart and we follow as he confronts William once again, telling him that the red stone he carries is possessing him. But as William tries to kill Henry, your father leaps off the back of the train and we are teleported back to the house, but not before the haunting face of William Rockwell is seared into our minds. Once returned, a hidden gallery in the basement holds a painting depicting the missing ship we heard about in the opening sequence, the Orpheus, which then draws us into another memory. I guess originally Echo Knight was going to be set entirely within a Western-style house, which I assume the devs meant mansion, but was changed to a ship because the devs thought that mansions were often used as a setting for adventure horror games. But funny enough, the second game, Echo Knight 2, Lord of Nightmares, was set entirely in a mansion. Couldn't fight it, could you? No matter how far you run, no matter where you go, always comes back to the mansion. I honestly think that a ship was such a good call, as the team really wanted to make a space that was cramped and claustrophobic rather than spacious. A setting that would really make those detailed rooms pop. I mean, the first thing I noticed about this game is just how claustrophobic it made me feel. You walk into a room and if you're facing a wall, I feel like that's all you can see. Not only does this add to the game's suspense, as anything could be directly next to you when you slowly turn around, but also makes the player feel uncomfortable, which is exactly how any good horror game should make you feel. And that creeping claustrophobia works almost too well in tandem with the memory mechanic. Most of the time when entering a memory, you are sent through a cutscene of sorts, showing you the brand new area, taking you away from the dark halls of the Orpheus. This was a clear design, as I found it really helped break up that feeling of monotony, solitude, and expectation that a player might build being stuck in a ship for 6+ hours. There were many times where I became far too comfortable with my surroundings, and the moment I interacted with a random object, like this cupboard here, boom, memory jump scare. Zooming through the streets right up to Albert Einstein's laboratory. Can't touch those papers, dog, or else he'll toss you out. Why not, Albert? What's on them? Emails from your girlfriend? The setting itself is unique, haunting, but most importantly, just genuinely interesting. The Orpheus doesn't feel like this derelict ship, but rather a living, breathing entity filled with rich story and character. But as soon as you embark on your pleasure cruise, we immediately meet with our first passenger, the shadowy visage of Captain Greg Capstan. You see, most passengers on the Orpheus have died, and Captain Greg Capstan is one such passenger. He takes you to his cabin and makes it very clear you are not to leave, but we all know there's a mystery afoot that needs a solving, and I isn't staying locked up as some spooky shadow captain's cabin boy. I've played enough horror games to know how this ends. I'm out of here! I'm out of here! I'm leaving! I'm going! A spirit. A specter. A ghoul.
It's the light. They're not fond of light.
Out of all the things that could have been done to vanquish this ghost, they went with turning on a light. Okay, it's not my game. Lights! Natural ghost repellent. And old Greg knows it as he flicks on those Edison classics, thus saving us from certain doom at the hands of this little girl. And that's not a one-off moment. This is how you deal with 99% of the evil ghosts in Echo Night. Got a small demon child following you? Turn on a light. Ex-girlfriend throwing hexes at you again? Just turn on a light. In fact, most problems in your life can simply be solved by turning on a light. As we wander the upper deck of the Orpheus, we end up meeting more crew members and passengers who have all met with terrible fates. It turns out that dying abruptly keeps one's soul trapped in a sort of limbo, so Richard takes it upon himself to help them move on by solving their past regrets, grievances, or otherwise unresolved concerns through their memories. Some memories have us reuniting lovers by riding on a carousel to locate a wedding ring, others exploring ancient mines with lever puzzles. But the thing I love most is after finishing a memory, you sometimes get a new item that can be used to solve puzzles on the ship, progressing deeper into the Orpheus. I'd also like to point out that they somehow made the nice ghosts look unique only using a transparent shadow. Obviously, the evil ghosts have more features and colors, but the passengers were all the same, black silhouettes, and yet the details you see give them each their own identity. It would have been easier to just make all the passengers of the Orpheus look the same, but instead they tried to make them all look different, and that level of detail does not go unnoticed by me. Now, the nice ghosts are all fine and well, but what about the meanies? I mean, what would an atmospheric puzzle game be without a little spookapalooza? You might be helping some guy conquer his fear of darkness, then bam! Little girl shows up, starts throwing you around like a beach ball at a Nickelback concert. The few evil ghosts we meet, or rather demons as they're referred to in-game, are such a good addition. They add tension, dread, and while turning on lights is how you get rid of them, sometimes the lights don't work in the room and you have to use environmental objects like this squawking bird that lures them away, buying you just enough time to get to the working pair of lights on the other side of the room. The demons are not simply there to scare you, but are puzzles in themselves that the player must solve in order to progress the game. Encountering these ghastly phantasms really showcases a clever use of both storytelling and game design. It's not enough to simply wander around halls in search of clues and items to solve puzzles, but rather we are forced to interact with the many ghosts of the ship, good and bad, becoming invested in their stories, thus uncovering our own.
I have been waiting for you. Come here.
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
Picking up that seductive book takes you to the observatory, and within its isolated walls lies a key NPC and this game's quote-unquote merchant, the Medium.
Please come in.
The Medium appears as a blind man with a sultry voice who tells you that he is trying to achieve some sort of goal and needs something known as astral pieces to achieve it. This far into your Echo Night journey, you may have noticed that after helping a spirit pass, they leave behind an object. A sort of spiritual poo, if you will. This is an astral piece, and giving it to the Medium rewards you with holy water. There are only two curatives in Echo Night. The healing potion, which heals you for all of your HP, and then the Medium's holy water, which heals only a bit of HP but can be used to cure possession. Possession is a condition that acts a lot like blind from Shadow Tower, causing your screen to become darker and more narrow. And I would love to talk about the possession mechanic, but I was never able to trigger it. I tried just standing there, getting hit by ghosts, but I've only ever taken damage and never actually got possessed. There are 26 astral pieces in total, one for every spirit on the ship, and giving them all to the Medium will unlock new endings. But more on that later. Leaving the shop, the Medium will give Richard a piece of blue stone, and if you remember the first memory we visited, your father gave Creo Rockwell a similar piece of the blue stone. The Medium then says that this stone holds your destiny, then proceeds to laugh. Finishing the upper levels of the Orpheus, we move down below to the dark halls beneath the main floor. And this is where the game gets both more spooky and the puzzles have some difficulty spikes. Typically, puzzles in Echo Night are not these brain-bending stumpers that only those blessed with infinite knowledge can complete, but instead your typical puzzles are served at a rather comfortable difficulty. Like this puzzle where two twins share a bedroom across from one another. One is being haunted by a demon, and the other one tells us to save her counterpart. Every time we walk into the haunted twins' room, a ghost pops out of the bathroom and blasts us with their ghost powers. But because the twins are connected, so too are the rooms that they reside in. So moving this space heater in front of the bathroom door in the non-haunted twins room traps the ghost inside the bathroom on the opposite room, which to me makes no gosh dang sense. Not because of the trans-dimensional interior designing, but because I'm not sure how a space heater can keep a ghost from moving through a bathroom door.
Let's see him get out of this one.
However, there are some puzzles that's challenge is so great I do not think I could have solved them without a guide. Like the tonic puzzle, where we meet this drunken ghost who tells us he wishes to taste his friend Ed's drink one last time after he and two other ghosts locked the poor man up in a room for going crazy. He leaves a glass which you take to the lounge behind him, and let me tell you, this is a puzzle straight out of Resident Evil. The room itself is detailed with a grand piano and art that looks like it was made for a Conan comic, and behind the bar, which took me way too long to find, there are these compartments containing 4 bottles. An axe bottle, a man bottle, a snake bottle, and a sword bottle. Each bottle can fill up a small portion of the glass, so you have to figure out the perfect ratio to concoct Ed's brew. The answer to the riddle is as plain as day when you figured it out, which is redundant and I'm not sure why I wrote this in. Ed was a painter, and in his room there is a desk, not with drawers or keyholes, but with a carving of his name that says Ed Mooring, E.M. This is a hint that the paintings are a clue for his tonic. So we look to the paintings in the lounge, and lo and behold, there's one initialed EM. There is this Conan-esque man with an axe fighting 2 snakes. So 1 portion man, 1 portion axe, and 2 portion snakes, resulting in Ed's drink, which we then give to the spirit. While this game definitely had some puzzles in it that I would consider challenging, it also had some no-brainers in it as well. And that by no means is a bad thing. In fact, Echo Knight was never meant to be a hard game. According to the dev interview in the guidebook, when it came to difficulty, the devs said they didn't really think about it much. And I think that worked out pretty well for them because the puzzles in this game are varied, memorable, and hardly, if ever, repeat themselves. I mean, even the ghost encounters were pretty straightforward, but because of that variation in difficulty, sometimes you would have to think outside the box to defeat the ghost rather than just running up and flicking a light on. One of our first major roadblocks is the ghost of the little girl. We enter into this back hallway of the guest quarters, and I cannot stress enough that this is the first time in a long time I've noped audibly while playing a game. You enter the room and she just starts levitating furniture. Luckily, noping out of there is exactly what you need to do, since you immediately meet with a little boy who tells us that the demon child in that room is not actually the real little girl, and that her soul cries out begging for someone to free her. The demons in this game could be equated to bosses, though I use that term lightly as it's less about fighting them and more about resolving their negative emotions and setting their souls free. The little girl is the first one, and we free her by entering a mine, doing a minecart puzzle involving swapping tracks and riding a cart to a man. This man seems to be the little girl's father and says that the mine we are in is owned by the Rockwell family, as in William Rockwell, and was closed due to strange disappearances. His daughter Claudia was one of the people who disappeared, and her doll can be seen here. As we reach for the doll, the man breaks through the stone and reveals the body of a buried Claudia who met her untimely end due to foul play. We are then transported back to the Orpheus and hand over the doll to Claudia, purifying her soul and setting her free.
My doll. Father gave this to me.
I really like the rare facial expressions we get to see in this game. Claudia's face goes from this dead, demonic, and spooky face to kind and innocent the moment that she touches the doll. It's small touches in games like changing facial expressions that really add to the visual storytelling of older games. Past Claudia, we find a suit that we can wear to get past the butler ghost who's guarding the dining room. But just as we're picking up that finely tailored suit, we're knocked out by a mysterious assailant, bringing us to the medical office. Spoiler, you'd never figure out who knocks you out. Naked and afraid, we are now in a brand new part of the ship. But worry not, the Orpheus may seem large, but in reality it's actually quite compact. While not exactly a Metroidvania, Echo Knight does allow for backtracking to previous areas that were originally blocked earlier in the game. At first I felt overwhelmed by the ship's map, but after a couple of hours I became pretty familiar with it and realized that it's all tightly connected, noticing each area and their distinct looks. The upper deck is more of an outside area with captain quarters and storage facilities, and the inner passenger deck was more lavish and furnished with regal carpets and halls. The lower portion of the passenger deck contains a playroom, theater, and of course...
Welcome to Casino Orpheus.
Is this like an evil laugh, or do you just have a nervous tick? I probably spent about 30% of my playthrough here gambling, losing over and over, all while listening to the same goddamn song. The casino has roulette, slots, and blackjack and is run by these 3 ghosts. It is a completely optional area, but if you want to unlock 2 additional endings, one of which being the best ending, you need to complete it by beating this blackjack ghost. Problem is, to unlock her, you need to win enough times in a row at roulette, a random game of chance. Then, if you're lucky, you get to play against the dealer to a first of 200 points, but she quite literally has got the heart of the cards because she always has the right card for every situation. Oh, also, did I mention that you can't save after you've won the roulette? And the casino closes at 6 a.m., so you have to beat the roulette section fast enough or get kicked out, and if you fail blackjack, you need to reset your game and do it all over again. It's bad. After wrestling with the true horrors of this game, RNG, we visit the theater and watch a silent film that reveals William Rockwell, the man possessed by the Redstone Dagger, was on this ship at one time and is the reason why everyone is dead. William's very presence caused the demons to appear, and together they wiped out every living person on the Orpheus. The first of these spirits we already met, Claudia. The others, I'll talk about them soon, but first you need to know about the Rockwells. We end up meeting the ghost of Arthur and Hilda Rockwell, William's son and his wife. They saw the influence that the stone knife was having on their father, and they plotted to kill him on this ship. Unfortunately, William beat them to the punch. They then tell us to go through a painting behind them to another memory that shows us the origin of the Rockwell family and their inheritance of the knife. We see a king murdered by a mercenary named Alan Rockwell, who was sent to destroy the stone and the knife, but instead stole it for himself. Arthur tasks Richard to explore the ship looking for 4 specific slabs that opens this here gate, but it's around this part of the game that I really started to take note of just how much I love the areas and puzzles in this game. Areas on the Orpheus feel really distinct. Some places were beautiful, like this pool, some stifling, like the lower crew quarters, and some were just downright creepy, like the bathrooms at the bottom of the ship.
Hell no, to the no, 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 hell to the no.
There was never a time I felt bored with the environments, and rarely when I did feel like an area was becoming stale, I'd get flung into a memory which was a whole different area. Or I'd stumble into a room with a really interesting puzzle that ended up spanning multiple rooms. For example, moving through the lower decks, you find this telegraph key. At first you think, Krea's written on the desk, so maybe I gotta type it in Morse code, but what you didn't account for is that this room is a multi-room puzzle, and yes, you do have to write out Krea in Morse code, but that's besides the point. First, you have to figure out the proper settings for the machine, and in doing so, you go through a bunch of small little puzzles that I'm not gonna spoil for you, but it made what I thought was the most visually boring area probably one of my favorite parts in the game. The first plate is easy. Arthur gives it to us. The second plate, inside this robotic parrot.
Do you want it? Do you want it? Go find it! Go find it!
Yeah, no, this is fine. I mean, I love it when a Chuck E. Cheese reject starts channeling its inner demons to me. I mean, what's next? My room are gonna start listing off my sins in Latin? Gregor, what have I told you about interrupting me during my passions? Yeah, you better turn that tuchus around, because I don't want to hear nothing from you for the rest of the night. So Polywana Crackhead sends you to the memory tied to the second evil spirit, Lisa Cofferdam, a maid of House Rockwell who was murdered by William. She of course is also the demon who has been following us around the entire game, popping out of bathrooms, chasing us down halls, and staring at us from the top of stairs. In this memory, we visit a graveyard, and this is my favorite place in Echo Night. Not just because of the oppressive, snowy atmosphere, or the old gravekeeper who I fear looks a little too much like me after I've spent a whole minute on Twitter.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
No, I love it because it showcases the game's sound extremely well. This whole area is silent, and that silence is deafening. You walk through a crypt and your footsteps echo through its halls. The walls are broken, looking like open wounds bleeding out onto the floor. The corners are tight, giving rise to an increasing anxiety that you might not be alone. And you aren't. There is an old man who finds you and tells you to leave. He places one of the plates you need on a wall, opening a gate that takes you to the exit. Except it's not an exit. It's the dead corpse of Lisa, holding onto a pendant of her lover. If you haven't guessed it, that man's William. And you better start running because that boy about to murder you. This part is one of the scarier moments in Echo Night. Not only is William chasing you, his friend the Gravekeeper also jumps in on the action, and now you have two dudes chasing you, adding double the terror. We grab the plate William used, escape the troublesome two, and exit the memory. We take the pendant we found and return it to Lisa, purifying her soul. This gives us access to the water pump puzzle, which drains the pool above, letting us place a glass eye in the bottom of said pool during a blood moon. And just as a side note, the way they did lighting in Echo Night was excellent, especially since light itself is a core theme in the game. When you enter dark rooms, they feel dark, heavy, and when you turn on a light, you feel an instant sense of relief as that room is illuminated. A shining example of the lighting in this game is the pool room during the blood moon. It creates this intense air of dread that is so present, yet nothing bad comes to pass. From Software really wanted you to feel something with the lighting in this game, and I can't help but touch on it. Socketing that eye into the pool sends us to a library, where we find an old book containing the hidden lore about the blue and red stones, but more on that later. The fourth plate will be given to us by a man here if you go help his crew in the lower decks, which is exactly where we need to go because the third plate is there as well. We just need to take this dumbwaiter down.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
There was at least 20 things I was expecting at the bottom of this elevator, but the horrifying visage of the king blasting through the vents like a xenomorph in heat was not among them. And what's worse is, like a vacuum, he sucks you in with his sovereign gaze, ever drawing you closer and closer, and just as you near his cadaverous form, a light turns on, vanquishing the demon. The man who just saved us from the king is none other than your father, Henry. But he doesn't stay very long, and we have a mission to do. 2 more tablets. First one is past the telegraph key and Morse code puzzle, which brings us to a memory of a cathedral. Our goal? Listen to the music box song given to us by this boy, and then play it on this organ. Unfortunately, I have a severe music handicap and spent the better part of 20 minutes trying to figure out this puzzle. Locked away in this church's basement is none other than Kreia. She has been imprisoned by her grandfather and says that unfortunately the bluestone shard she had been given was stolen by William, and that both shards need to be reunited to destroy the redstone. We gain her trust, and just as she's promising to get the bluestone shard for us, we are sent back to the Orpheus. Echo Night doesn't really do a good job of explaining what the stones are and where they came from. Luckily, the guidebook has a whole page dedicated to the lore of the stones, and I thought I'd share it with you because nothing screams video essay like regurgitating something you got out of a book that you paid $50 for. I'm getting my money's worth. So there was this alchemist who, in his search for power, met a mysterious man who knew the secret to creating the red stone, an artifact that could change one's fate. After creating said stone, his friend Andrew, the king demon, found out about its power and murdered the alchemist, taking the stone for himself. The alchemist's son, outraged by this, began research on how to destroy the red stone, and with the help of that same mysterious man, ended up creating the blue stone, which could destroy the red stone on contact. He then entrusted the blue stone with a mercenary named Alan Rockwell, who was tasked with assassinating the king and destroying the red stone, but succumbed to its influence. Alan then splits the blue stone, knowing its power, and hides one piece in an unknown location while keeping one for himself. The Rockwell family rises to power through murder, deception, and trickery. But much like Icarus, flies too close to the sun, as one member of a family the Rockwells had stepped on stole the stones, plummeting the Rockwell family into ruin. Enter the 19th century century. William Rockwell wishes to bring his family back to former glory and hunts down the red stone. He then finds the family with the fragment of the blue stone and murders them. But luckily, a young man gets away with the bluestone fragment, plotting revenge on William for what he had done to his family. This man was Henry Osmond. The first bluestone fragment was given to Kreia, but as for the second bluestone fragment, a mysterious man gives it to Richard on the Orpheus. Exiting the lower decks, we get the final tablet from Ernest and open the main doorway leading to the family rooms. The spirits of the Rockwell family reside here, all in their own themed rooms, which remind me way too much of Animal Crossing. Forest room, water room, pizza oven room. We meet with the Rockwells, who are trying to help us get into Kreia's room. Upon doing so, we investigate a painting of Kreia and a man assumed to be her father, which sends us back to the castle memory, where we investigate the dead body of King Andrew and find a cameo of his daughter. Use that bad boy on him, exorcise the demons, and finally find William Rockwell.
My journey has finally come to an end. Destiny shifted its course from the instant I held the red stone. With these hands, I have taken the lives of many innocent people. That girl, Kreia, was waiting for you. She was fighting for both you and your father. Take a look.
Oh, sorry, that was my private collection of visions. Try this one. Through this vision, we see a house in a valley where an assassin sent by William hunts down Kreia. An earthquake rocks the house, the assailant is trapped under some books, but manages to survive and shoot Kreia, killing her. We are then brought out of the vision and told that this has already happened in the past and that Kreia is dead. The dying William then reveals that the red stone has moved its influence onto your father, Henry, and that to save Kreia and your father, you must combine the two fragments of the blue stone. Upon his last breath, we are sent to that valley house through a memory, and to change the past, we steal a bullet that Kreia had loaded into her gun, and after the earthquake happens, the gun falls into the assailant's hand, but because we have the bullet, the gun doesn't go off. All according to plan. With Kreia's sacrifice to save us, she tosses the remaining bluestone fragment, taking us back to the now dead William. Now, before the climax of this game, it would be wise to go deposit all of your astral pieces to the medium. The medium, who I am almost certain is the devil, shows us his shiny new red stone that he created, and we unknowingly helped him create it. Now, you can only get this cutscene if you've delivered all 26 astral pieces to him, and he doesn't give it to us yet. With a key in hand that William had dropped, we head to the engine room of the ship, where we meet with dear old Dad, who's become a little too Palpatine-y under the influence of the red stone.
I will become one with this power.
He then just passes out, and we enter the final encounter. William Rockwell's oh my god! This part is so stressful. The power goes out, so you need to light this bugger up. But as you wander the engine rooms in search of valves and keys, William just follows you. It's so eerie, so horrifying, and he can just phase through walls, making nowhere safe. As long as you keep moving and do a few strafes here and there, you shouldn't have too much trouble, but the consistent threat of him popping out of any wall is so frightening. After finishing the engine puzzle and turning on the lights with William hot on our trail, we make it back to the room, fuse the blue stone fragments together, and use it on the red stone, then boom! Metroid escape sequence. You have 99 seconds to find your way out. No ghosts, no obstacles, or animals to save. But there is a decision to make, of which will determine the ending you get. The bad ending, you didn't make it out of the ship in time, the ship gets beamed up to heaven, and you go missing as a result. The neutral ending, the medium calls out to you upon entering the final room, but you ignore him, meeting with the spirit of Kreia, teleporting you safely to the house where you started the game in. But as you leave with your officer pal, you find something ominous within the trunk of his cruiser. The evil ending. You heed the medium's call, and when presented with the option to take the red dagger, you do so. And when teleported home by Kreia, Richard murders the policeman, forever continuing the cycle. And then the best ending. You approach the medium, say nah to that stone dagger, meet with Kreia, who brings you home. You then get a cutscene of Richard back at his apartment with Kreia's music box, of which a montage begins to play of her. And so in the end, everyone you know and love is dead, and you've pissed off an eldritch being. can't really say that's worth it. Who are you?
I am the Rom Wraith, born within illegitimate copies of games and cursed to hunt those who play them.
What are you talking about? This is a totally legit copy of Echo Knight.
That you bought off Facebook buy and sell for $20?
No, okay, that's valid.
Prepare to pay for your ignorance and desire for a bargain.
Listen, pal, I don't believe in ghosts, goblins, and certainly not gaming gahools such as yourself. And I got a conclusion to get to, so if you could just scram, that would be great.
I'm a ghost, you idiot. That won't work.
Treeky, it's me, Mario. I love you.
What the? Where did you go? You wouldn't.
You know, I learned a lot about myself in today's episode. Mainly, don't buy from Facebook Marketplace anymore, and never work with Jello. But most importantly, I learned that I love horror-based puzzle games. I mean, Echo Knight had me hooked within the first hour of the game, and then from there, all I wanted to do was explore the Orpheus, unravel the mysteries of the stones, and figure out where'd my dad go. And then you have this dark atmosphere honed by sound design in a setting that breaks traditional horror norms. Paired with a compelling take on the story of the Philosopher's Stone, where instead of turning metal to gold, they're turning souls to fate, all beautifully condensed into a 6 to 8 hour adventure that I personally think any survival horror fan will deeply enjoy. But with that being said, I sure hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and I can't wait to see you here for the next episode. So remember,
Tua videos suggents.
whoa, thanks for watching. That one got a little conceptual there at the end, huh? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to take it one step further, you can join the Patreon to see videos a little bit earlier and get some updates from yours truly. Or if Patreon's not cutting it for you, you can also become a member here on the channel. I've got a couple little cool emotes you can use during live streams, if that so suits you. Speaking of Patreon, here's a list of all of our super special rares and greater. Wow, look at all those generous cutie patooties. And as for our legendary rares, we got Herial, being a king, doing king stuff. Thanks for the support, brother. It means the world to me.